And it's a very good morning to the Gelding. And Gelding, once again, no metropolitan race meeting in Melbourne, and we're going to Randwick.
Um, Good morning, Professor. Good morning, listeners. Yes, we're going to the Group 1s in Randwick, the last day of the championships up there. Again, no metropolitan racing in Melbourne, but of course, Mornington Cup Day. So it's a fairly big day for Mornington and all that. But as we've said previously, Professor, these race days. Can I get on the soapbox early?
Yes, get on the soapbox, Gelding.
All right. Well, Mornington Cup, which now, the winner gets an entry into the Caulfield Cup, which is fantastic. It's a race certainly worthwhile winning, being worth 300,000, but in a listed race. And I might be following up with First Immortal in it, but we'll just see how we go with that. I think, Professor, I remember the Mornington Cup, and this isn't that long ago. It used to be ran in February, early February, late January, Professor, on a Wednesday, down at the Mornington track, in January, February, during the school holidays, when everyone's down the peninsula. Right, and they would get crowds of 5,000 to 10,000 people there. But now they want a standalone Saturday meeting. They'll get a good crowd down there today. Probably 2,000 people will be there, but who knows? But anyway, Professor, again, racing clubs and Racing Victoria, do they know best? I don't know.
Well, Gelding, I sent you a text during the week. I did the additions on the prize money. Once again, New South Wales wins $4 million on offer with 2 Group 1s and 4 Group 3s. So a very interesting day of racing at Randwick, and one that gets our attention versus $1 million in prize money for 10 races at Mornington. And the field's fairly ordinary, and the main jockeys, of course, go to Sydney because that's where the prize money is.
Exactly, the good horses. Exactly, Professor. So, look, still good racing at Mornington, and races you'd like to win as horse owners and things like that. But yeah, when you're talking quality and competition, and that's what it's all about, the punting dollar and the competition for it. As I said, wondering whether Racing Victoria at the moment with an acting chairman and waiting for the big fella from the AFL to fill the boots of leading Racing Victoria to come. Let's see what happens there. Yeah, might be the old private school network coming back to help. But
we'll see how it goes, Gelding.
You've got to say that Racing New South Wales, led by Volanders, seems to be doing a fairly good job at the moment, Professor, and maybe attracting the big owners, the good horses, and let's see. You're noticing, when the big stables like Kieran Maher are opening stables in New South Wales, isn't that telling you something?
Certainly is, Gelding. It certainly is. All right, a 10-race card at Randwick. 6 of those group races, Gelding. 2 of them Group 1s. The first is at 11. First is at the very early time of 11:25 a.m. Gelding.
Well, you set me a pace, Professor, to get these bets on for us.
I have, and the last at 4:55. So an early finish at Randwick today.
Oh well, of course, daylight saving time, and with the winter things coming on, this is probably. Well, I like it a lot better, Professor. But look, I've probably stolen your thunder today by taking the 2 Group 1 races, have I?
Oh, no, that's all right, Gelding. Perfectly okay. The feature race, Gelding, race 8, the all-aged stakes, Group 1 over 1,400 metres, worth $1.5 million, and we'd all like to be having a part of that. The tracks are soft 5 at the moment, Gelding. The rail, a two-level rail at the moment, out 5 metres for most of the course, out 7 metres from the 1,000-metre mark to the winning post. Is that going to affect the racing?
Look, Professor, probably not. A little bit wider. So, look, hopefully, I will say the Randwick track, with the amount of rain that they had 3 weeks ago, Professor, has just played fantastic. So, look, I've been a wrap for this carnival, their championships they've had, and the form coming out of the Golden Slipper has just been fantastic. So, Professor, I've gone as my first bet of the day. I'm waiting till 3 o'clock in race 7. The Champagne Stakes for 2-year-old over a mile, Professor. I thought this could have been one that we might have had an entry in. Would have thought that the 1600.
If only.
If only, but not to be.
We're not ready yet. We're not ready, according to the trainer. We're not ready.
Show some patience, Professor.
I think so.
Is he showing patience with his bills?
No, maybe this time next year, Gelding.
Oh, beautiful, Professor. So the first bet I like today is race 7, number 7, Manuel, trained by Michael Freedman, ridden by one of our favourite jockeys in Jamie Carr. This horse has had 5 starts for 3 wins, Professor. It won the size last start, the Group 1 size over 1,400. I think the racing pattern just sits back. It's a quality field who reeled in the leaders late when it won the size. I think it just draws perfectly in 4 for Jamie Carr to take a nice sit on this horse, and I think it can win. Look, its form, it's had 5 starts for 3 wins and a second, Professor. The only unplaced race was when it was 5th in the Golden Slipper, only beaten 2.3 lengths. So I think this is a good 2-year-old. Professor can get round about the $2.50 at the moment for it. So certainly be on that. Some good horses in it. Broadsiding, who won last week. James McDonald Cummings and Linebacker and a node. But look, I think Jamie Carr will have this horse in a beautiful position, Professor, and should be running away with the race. Bit of a change of jockey. Jay Collett rode it last start, but Jamie Carr hops on board, so I don't think we lose anything with that. In fact, personally,
might gain something, Gelding.
I was just going to say that, Professor. You're that good. You beat me on these things. She's back in form, Jamie Carr, so nothing wrong with backing her. My second bet is in the all-age stakes, Professor. Geez, this is a good race over 1,400. A lot of chances in it, Professor. I like the Kieran Maher, Southport Tycoon, Annabelle Neesham, Sunshine in Paris. But in a Group 1 race, Professor, in Sydney, I just can't go past Chris Waller. He's in fine form. A horse we've backed before, Professor. One of my favourites, Espiona, race number 9, race 8, number 9, Espiona. I think it's just he's got this horse flying at the moment, Professor. Ran 3rd in the all-age stakes over 11:30. He then took it to the 11:20 in the TJ Smith, Professor, where it ran 6, flying home, beaten under a length, beaten by 0.8 lengths, Professor. Was absolutely flying home. Hopefully, Natural Wheeler, we get one of Nash's better rides. Not one of the crazy rides. And he can time his run to perfection. And I think this horse could be sweeping over the top of a rather good field, Professor. Espiona, look, odds at the moment, we can get round about almost $4, Professor. So I think it's a very, very good each way bet. So my two are race 7, number 7, Manel, and race 8, number 9, Espiona. And you like, Professor?
Yeah, Gelding, going a little bit earlier than you. Race 3, the James HB Car Stakes. It's a Group 3 race for 3-year-old fillies over 1,400 metres. In this race, Gelding, I like horse number 2, Miraval Rose, coming out of barrier 7. It's had 5 starts for 2 wins and 2 placings, so lightly raced, but been in the money all but one time of its starts. 40% win rate, 80% place rate. So I like those figures. I think its last start at Randwick, Gelding, I'm giving it a forgive run there. 2 weeks ago, it was a heavy 10.
Yeah.
So it ran 7 of 14. So it's had a start in the Group 3. Its true form, Gelding, I think, it ran second at Caulfield in the Group 3 Thoroughbred Club Stakes. And it was second up at that start. It's second up today. So I think it can do well. Michael D's in the saddle and trained by Graham Begg. Graham Begg in career form at the moment, 13% win rate over his career, but over the last 50, 16%. So he's upped it by 3%. Gelding, that's very important. Currently showing $4.40 and $1.80. So I like those each way odds.
Oh, Professor, I like your tip here. Look, as you said, it's had 5 starts for 2 wins and 2 seconds. So the last start was the only time it hasn't run first or second in any of its career races. So on a better track, hopefully that will improve. So I'd certainly like it, Professor, and nice juicy odds of $4.40 gives yourself a good each way bet.
It does, Gelding. A second selection's in race 6, the JRA Plate. It's a Group 3 for 3-year-olds and above over 2,000 metres. I like in this race, Gelding, horse number 6, New Energy, coming out of barrier 12. Had 13 starts for probably not the most impressive of results, Gelding. Only 1 win in those 13 starts, but 6 placings. So it's been in the money over 50% of the occasions. Its win rate's not very well, but it's in a weaker class. Its last start was in a Group 1, so clearly the connections and the trainer think this horse has something because nearly all of its 13 starts have been in group races. It ran second at Randwick in a Group 3, the Liverpool Stakes, at the start of March. So that's probably its form. And I think it'll be in the winners list today. And it's being ridden by one of the premier jockeys in Australasia, Gelding, James McDonald. And, yeah, go on.
I was going to say a world-ranked jockey, Professor.
Yes, and trained by Kieran Maher, who is well up there, Gelding, and he's doing something unbelievable at the present time. For a trainer to have a 17% career win rate is excellent, but over his last 50, Gelding, he's winning at 24%.
Oh, lead almost Maher stable and the Wallace stable are 2 leading stables in Australia. Most winners, you're getting a combination of a leading trainer and a leading jockey. And just look, Professor, this horse has only won 1 race, but it's got 280,000 in prize money. So, it may have only won 1, but as you said, well, I think that just shows you this horse is still winning good prize money, and if it had won some of those races, it could have been way up there. But so obviously the trainer has got a pretty big opinion of it. And I've got to admit, Professor, Maher horses, anything over a distance like 2,000 metres, they're absolutely flying.
Yes. So, all right. So my 2 selections for today, Gelding, race 3, horse 2, Miraval Rose, and race 6, horse 6, New Energy. And now let's turn to the Professor's Parlay, which was torpedoed by the Carlton Football Club last week, Gelding. One of the few teams that couldn't beat Adelaide this season, and they played them at home. Can you tell me about this form, Gelding? The form line.
Professor, now watching that game, weren't they up by 16 points with 5 minutes to go, Carlton?
Yes, Gelding, I was already counting the money.
I don't know what they did, Professor. They just imploded. And
I think, you know what, Gelding, I think they thought they were going to win.
Oh, I think they may have thought that, Professor, and I'm sure Michael Voss, if you saw him on the sidelines as Adelaide were coming and they were stopping, it was like the explosion of the head and the steam coming out every orifice, and I'm sure he let them know that that was a game that they threw away, Professor. Should certainly have won it. But
yes. So Orchestral ran third, Gelding, and Geelong looked after North Melbourne. We got 2 legs out of the 3, the hard one. We got the horse one paying, but unfortunately, Carlton let us down. So no Carlton in this week's
no
parlay,
Carlton.
Gelding. No,
Right,
no Carlton.
On the sideline.
Yeah, they've been subbed out, Gelding.
Right.
All right. So this week, the agreed bet of the day, Gelding, is that we're going to Ascot, race 8, horse 8, Amelia's Jewel. Perhaps you'll tell the viewers why that's our agreed bet of the day.
Professor Amelia's Jewel's, again, another favourite horse of ours that came over here, and we followed it when it was over in Melbourne during the Spring Carnival. It certainly didn't let us down, Professor. There's a $5 million race at Ascot today called the Quokka. Amelia's Jewel's in it. We think the trainer has said this is a race it was being set for even in the last spring. He didn't race it in the Cox Plate because he wanted to save it for this race. Simon Miller. Damien Lane's gone across to ride it. It's up against some good horses in Bella Nipotina. Maybe one of its dangers, Professor, but, you know, Amelia's Jewel, she's the queen of WA racing. It's WA's main race. Very backable at round about the $2.60, Professor. And as we said, I think it's the bet of the day, so Australia-wide. And that's what we look for in the Professor's parlay. We try, the horse leg being the hardest, we try to make it. We try not to look at the odds. We try to find a winner, Professor.
Yes, and it's worked for us so far, Gelding.
It has indeed.
All right, so let's parlay that into the Penrith Panthers to beat the West Tigers. Penrith 6th on the ladder at the moment. They've won 3 out of 5, plus 14 points differential. West Tigers 12th. They've won 2 from 5, minus 15 points differential. What I like about this one, Gelding, is Panthers at home at the foot of the mountain. Very hard to beat. The bookies agree with me. The line's plus 13.5 on the West Tigers. So more than 2 converted tries, the difference the bookies feel at the end of the game. So that's good enough for me, Gelding.
Yeah, Professor, I like it. Panthers, they should just waltz in, shouldn't they?
They should. And let's parlay that into Fremantle in the Derby to beat West Coast. Fremantle 9th, won 3 from 5. Been pretty impressive, Gelding. They've got a pretty good percentage of 122.3, which is a lot better than a lot of the other teams in the 8.
Yep.
And against West Coast 16th, who had their first win last week against your Tigers, Gelding. One thing I don't like about West Coast, or 2 things I don't like about West Coast, is their percentage, 65%. And the reason it's 65% is that their average points against is 101 points per game, and you're not going to win too many games if you're allowing 101 points every game, every time you run out onto the field.
I agree, Professor. Fremantle playing very well, a very miserly defence, and they're building, they're obviously toughened up again from last year. But last year might have been an aberration. The year before they were very good. They were a bit off last year, but they've seemed to have fixed everything up over the summer, Professor, and their defence has just been probably the equal almost to any defence, apart from Melbourne's defence, I'd say, Professor.
All right, Gelding, the line, the bookies 33 plus 33.5, so they're expecting Fremantle to win by at least 5 goals. That's the biggest margin in AFL offered by the bookies today, so that's good enough for me. The win parlay currently showing 9-2, Gelding, so that's great odds for the parlay. The place parlay showing an even better 2-1. So I like that for the place. That's very nice.
I like it, Professor. Well chosen, I'd like.
All right, Gelding. Now, before we go, I just wanted to talk to you about one of the races at Randwick last week, which had one of our favourite horses running, Mr. Brightside. When was the last time that you were watching a race where there was that big a margin between the leader and the rest of the field that they had to take the camera angle way back to get the whole field in the camera lens?
Professor, talking about the Queen Elizabeth Stakes and
Pride of Jenni.
Pride of Jenni, big win. as everyone's well aware, Pride of Jenni does try to get out in front. Was a query over 2,000 metres, Professor?
Not anymore.
No, and Kieran Maher's setting up all these, again, Kieran Maher trained horse. Pride of Jenni was known as a miler, but at its previous start, it got out at Flemington in the Australian Cup by about 10 lengths, but was run down by Cascadian just on the line, so over 2,000. So there was queries of it. But last week, it's recorded that it actually got 106 metres in front of the second horse at one stage, and they equivalent that out to 2.5 metres is 1 length, Professor, of a horse. So at one stage it was leading by 42 lengths in front. So look, what happened to the other jockeys is beyond me. Craig Williams was on Mr. Brightside running second, and Tommy Berry was on Kolovic, which was running third. I heard the jockeys being interviewed after the race, and many of them were critical, saying the second and third horse should have brought their horses into the race. Well, and you know how much I'm in love with James McDonald. He was sitting second last on an even money favourite, saying the other jockey should have been bringing him into the race. Well, I would say to that, mate, you're on the favourite. They're riding their horse, and Craig Williams described it brilliantly. He rode Mr. Brightside for Mr. Brightside to finish in its best position, right? Because they said last time in the Australia Cup, they tried to stay close in touch with Pride of Jenni, which brought Mr. Brightside undone. It weakened the finish unplaced. Whereas Cascadian, who was Ben Mellon was riding, was sitting last and just picked away and found its way just to beat it. Well, Mellon also said, oh, well, it's not my fault. I ride my horse the way it's always ridden, and these other ones should have brought it up so I could just snipe in. Well, yeah, sorry, they don't get paid for riding your horses.
One thing we know, one thing we can say, Geldy, Pride of Jenni's got a great motor.
Oh, mate, fantastic. And she is a genuine Group 1 horse in her own right, and may be in contention for Horse of the Year. And excuse me, Professor, has the better of Mr. Brightside in the times that it's met. And, I'm big rap for Mr. Brightside. So, yeah, look, it's a fantastic horse, but Declan Bates may have caught the other jockeys napping, and marvellous how they don't blame themselves, Professor. They blame other jockeys. So, and Ben Mellon on Cascadian, right? He said the others should have taken it up. Well, I disagree with that. Sometimes you've got to do that. But the one I was critical of was James McDonald, who said, oh, that was embarrassing, and these guys should have done that. Well, when you're on an even money favourite and you run second and you're making up ground on this horse in the thing, why did you sit back and let this horse get 42 lengths in front of you?
Yeah, well, just sort of,
and you regard yourself as one of the best jockeys in the world.
Yeah, Gelding. Look, I just thought it was worth mentioning because it's not often that you see a horse get that far out in front and not get run down, because usually they get run down.
Oh, normally they do. They weaken and things like that. It takes you back to the 1970s, Professor, when a horse called Scotch and Dry used to do it. And that. Oh, you think of front runners, you think of Might and Power and Beau Rowe and that, but these horses would get, say, 6 to 10 lengths in front and keep going. And it's fantastic to watch one get out there because you're sitting there waiting for it to do it. But, normally there's a horse to catch it. There's got to be horses to bring them up. Yes. And, of course, they also ruin their own chances. So, Yeah, look, Professor, I just thought Declan Bates pulled the pants down on the other jockeys, and I think a few of them were embarrassed about their own rides. They might have they had a lot of explaining to do to the stewards and probably to the owners.
Yeah, I wouldn't have liked to have been in the jockeys' room, Gelding. All right, Gelding. Well, that's the end of edition number 170.
170.
Yeah, we've got 170 up, Gelding, for That's Racing. So we've gone pretty well over the time.
We're doing well, Professor. The bank is building.
It is, Gelding. All right. So until next Saturday, and That's Racing, it's good luck.
And good punch.